To the people, if nothing else.
Trying to get by Benning. Darnell Nurse left it in the corner, gets up center. Perry scores! Corey Perry!
Lilia able to shake away from Solani and skip it away to Solani around in front. Score! Teemu Solani with the steal.
Bring the fans want one. Score! On the floor! On the board! Paul Kariya!
So we are in February, and people are still apparently leaving their trash in the hallway to the point where my building felt necessary to put it back in to the elevator letter.
Continuing the story, everybody was waiting patiently to hear the update for that one.
I gotta be honest, man. I'm a little embarrassed of my building that there is a necessary follow-up, that it wasn't just, oh yeah, we should all agree not to do that because we don't live in the Ritz-Carlton.
No.
Like, fucking Sweet Life of Zach and Cody over here. What the like?
Just leave it in the hallway and hope somebody comes and grabs it.
Good Lord. Imagine.
So yeah, I mean, we picked a great night, great game to come back from. We can, you know what? We will count this as a post-game show.
There it is. Let's go. This is a post-game show.
This is a post-game show.
Every game is a post-game show.
Yeah.
Because the game has happened at some point. Can't say they didn't.
You are true. You are right. You're coming off of one of the ugliest losses of the season, 5-0 loss to Montreal, where they managed 13 shots on goal against a bottom. Montreal's close to being bottom five. They're under 500 team, so
they're 7th in the league.
Yeah, not good. Ducks are sitting
not good at all.
Third last in the league. Chicago and San Jose, right? I think are bottom two. Right
now. Yeah. It's a 2-horse race for the bottom, man. It is a 2-horse race for the bottom, but the Ducks are doing their level best to keep themselves relevant.
Hey man, we had our fun early on in the season. Things looked good, exciting, winning some games, went on a winning streak. The rookies came in, they started playing well. Success has tailed off, but the good thing is the kids are still playing well.
Are they?
Okay. Leo Carlson looks really, really good. And Olen Zellweger came up and looked impressive. I'll give Minchikov a bit of a break because he was injured.
Oh, no. Yeah, I'm just being an asshole about tonight. Everybody looked bad tonight.
Oh, everybody looked bad tonight.
Everybody looked bad tonight.
Yeah.
The fourth line was the only line that didn't look bad, and that can never be a good thing. But, Ross Johnston was out there doing Ross Johnston stuff, and I'm so proud of him.
Reminiscent of the Derek Grant days. Everybody was bad, but the fourth line looked okay.
Yeah, I was so proud of Ross Johnston tonight, starting shit. Some
things never change.
But no, look, I'm looking at the standings right now. There are 3 teams who haven't hit 40 points for the standings yet. Yikes. And it's Anaheim, San Jose, and Chicago. Columbus is having an existential crisis as a fan base right now because that team is in such a weird and bad spot, and everybody hates the coach, and everybody hates the GM, and they need it all to change. And
it's funny because they could be in a better spot too, because they've lost 10 overtime shootout games. It's like just an abysmal record. Like if they half that, they're not sitting much better. They're only one position above, but they're at least looking. There's more of a gap between them and the bottom 3. Like I feel like it really is that bottom 3, and then everybody else above them, right? Like there's a decent 8-point gap between us and Ottawa, and Ottawa has 3 games in hand.
Yeah, I would say Columbus is in the bottom 4. Because look, as much as you're right, if they win half of those games, they have 47 points.
Yeah, but they did,
and they're above Ottawa.
Yeah.
If they don't reach overtime on half of those things, they have less points than us.
Yeah, true.
Because to Anaheim's credit, they only have 2 loser points. So, and I believe that is tied for the... Oh. No, Edmonton has 1 loser point.
So, are we happier being here instead of not having the best odds at the lottery like we did last year, and then having the better chance of not winning the lottery? Like, do you feel better about that? I almost feel a little bit better not being the worst team in the league.
Maybe
it's because there's no Bedard this year. You know what I mean?
So, boy, it's so interesting to me because part of me is like, we're third from the bottom. How much better off are we actually?
This is the conversation I feel like we've been having for like the last 4-5 seasons. Is the results are roughly the same, but like, are we happier with where we are? Are things moving in the right direction? Do they look like a better team?
Like, yeah, no, and I'm saying that wrong because I don't mean to be presenting it quite that way, because I think it is inarguable that the first pick this team has made in the last 5 drafts have been objectively good decisions that put the team in a good place moving forward, right?
Yeah, I think even though we shipped one of them out the door, but it was a good trade.
But look at how he played when he was here. Look at how he's playing in Philadelphia. I don't think we made a bad pick.
Yeah.
Right? And
some Jamie Drysdale slander there.
What?
Is he playing bad in?
No, he's playing really well.
Oh, he's playing good. Okay.
No, he's doing really well over there. I think he fits surprisingly into Tortorella's system in a way. Like, look, the truth of it is he's going to go in there and he's going to be Tony DeAngelo, but he's not going to be an asshole, and he's not going to be just completely ignore the other half of the ice. He's a much smarter and much more defensively, even if you don't want to say skilled, he's much more committed defensively than someone like DeAngelo. Yeah. So that commitment and that effort and his intelligence is going to give him leeway with Tortorella. We've already seen Tortorella talk about it. He's really smart. He's a really good skater. We want him getting into the play. I'm not thinking of him like a defenseman. He's a rover. Like, he's using this language specifically to highlight the ways in which he can get the best out of Drysdale. And we've seen him do this with guys like Zach Werenski. We've seen him do this with guys like Seth Jones, where he just kind of lets them do whatever they want, as long as they're not hanging their teammates out to dry. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's going to be great for him. I'm really excited for Jamie that he's going to be in that situation. I think that's a good locker room for him. There's some older guys there. He gets to be back with D'Lo and things like that. Like, anyway, he knows Cam York, obviously.
Yeah.
But still, I think the choices that we have made in the last 5 drafts have been objectively good choices. And with the new rules around the draft lottery, you can only win it twice in like a 5-year period, I think it's something like that.
Yeah.
If they're not gonna win it this year, I would like to be as bad as possible, because it improves the general quality of the pick, but it also doesn't punish the team moving forward for having a spike up year.
Yeah.
This is, in my opinion, the best year to win the lottery. Like, last year would have, because I think Leo Carlsson is better than whoever you're going to take second in this draft.
Fair, yeah.
Right? At least at the time that we're doing this, with what we know about Leo Carlsson, and what I know of this class, which again isn't a ton, but it's where we're at, I would say I think Leo Carlsson.
So, would you rather have, in that instance, then, like, if you win it last year and don't win it this year, or you don't win it last year and you win it this year, so then would you rather 100%. Have Carlsson and, let's say, Celebrini, because he's the number 1 projected pick for this year, or would you rather have Bedard and whoever you take at 2, because it's up in the air this year, Yzerman or whoever?
You take Bedard, I think, every time. But I think the other thing to remember is technically Anaheim did win the lottery last year.
Right. Yeah, no, you're right. Yep.
So that's one of them.
Yep.
And that's the other part I didn't say at first. Which, because I honestly, I just skipped it in my head.
I think people forget that, too.
Because they've already won once, technically.
Yeah.
It's best to win it again right now.
Mm-hmm.
Get someone like Macklin Celebrini and be able to just go, great, we're here, we're moving forward. But if you're not going to win it this year, and maybe you can have a lucky year like when the Rangers got Lafreniere, right?
Yep.
Where you're like, oh, we finished like 11th or 12th, but we get the jump in a year where all of these young guys are under their second contracts. That's how you really stretch out your window, how you stretch out your potential, that kind of stuff, like that kind of luck, which doesn't happen all the time.
No.
But I would rather just wrap up our lottery bullshit now and just be like, we cannot win the lottery. Wherever we finish, we're picking there or 2 spots lower.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I think as long as it's not another same situation as last year, like that's kind of a bummer way to lock yourself into the 2 lottery wins in 5 years. It's like the second pick lottery victories, like to move from 3rd to 2nd, right? Or I guess so. Yeah, it would be that. Yeah, the lottery odds for a second. Yeah.
So, but I mean, you know, I am not going to say I wouldn't be ecstatic to also have Cole Yzerman fall to 4 or 5.
You don't want your 6'7" mobile Russian defenseman?
I 100% do. Because he's a righty, right?
I believe so. Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. We're talking about Leshinov, right? From Michigan State?
No. God. I now I gotta look it up. There's a couple because there's Levshinov, there's Demidov, but he's the forward. And now I can't remember his name, even though I was hyping.
Anton Silyev.
Silyev, yeah. Silyev, I think he's a lefty actually.
He's a lefty.
It's Levshinov who's a righty, who the Ducks could get, but
he's playing at Michigan State, having a good year.
Yeah.
28 points in 30 games, man.
Yeah, but apparently Silyev is. I mean, we know he's 6'7", but he skates like he's 6'2", 6'3". Like he's got a real smooth, fluid skating style.
Could you imagine a second pairing of 6'7" Leshinov or 6'7" Silyev and 6'5" Noah Warren?
Yeah.
And just like we're just gonna put out the 2 most huge people that we can possibly find.
Or just
put
the
them
height
out there with like
between him
McTavish,
and
Gauthier, and Carlson.
Him and Zellweger together.
Like, yeah. We're just gonna put out the biggest fucking 5 people we can find.
I don't know.
David Yurchek's little brother.
This draft's interesting. Honestly, I know of course we're somehow diving into draft talk because the Ducks are awful this year, but it's clearly Celebrini this year, and I guess it was clearly Bedard last year.
It was clearly Bedard last year. Because
maybe we are. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we are in a similar spot to last year, where it does feel like, and I know Yzerman has fallen a bit, so that I think that's where it's a bit different. Is last year you had Bedard, Fantilli was in the conversation, but then that quickly changed as Bedard just had a historic year. But then it became Bedard and Carlson, or Fantilli and Carlson, because Carlson had a great year. And it was up in the air on who they would take there. Now it feels like, Celebrini's the Bedard this year. He's the number 1 pick. And it's between Demidov and Yzerman. And both of them have their issues. Demidov being Russian and Yzerman having a not-so-great draft year so far. No real... It's a good year. It's just not an improvement on last year.
Cole Yzerman has 38 goals in 37 games.
That's why I had to catch myself there, because it's not. He's not having a bad
60
year.
Points.
It's
He's a freak, but I do love that. It's like, I don't know, what are we gonna do, guys? This one guy, he's Russian. This other guy, he's not very good. But I mean, he is very good. He's still really, really good. But it's just like one of them's Russian and one of them's having a down year. What are we gonna do?
That's the thing. Like the 2 Russians, they could go 2-3 presumably, but then the whole Russian factor plays into it again. Like seeing Michkov fall last year just makes you think there's no way these guys go anywhere near 2 or 3. because the same concerns apply this year. I think the only thing that might change is I believe it's Demidov. He only has one more year on that contract with St. Petersburg, so it's not like Michkov, where Michkov has this year and next year on that contract, where you're waiting a few years for him. You might only have to wait 1 year. So I don't know. I'd have to double check that. But then the problem is when you get outside of that, you've got Lev Shunov, who is Belarusian, but he's playing in the NCAA, so that concern isn't there. You've got Sam Dickinson, Caden Lindstrom, who are playing in the CHL, and you've got is it? I think it's SoCal native Zeev William.
Yeah,
I think I can't.
I didn't realize his brother was in the draft last year.
Oh, was he?
Nice.
Yeah. So you've got some options there, but I mean, outside of Celebrini and Yzerman, it's a complete toss-up. Like, there's just like the rest essentially. You got a Ginla's son in the draft this year too.
Mm-hmm.
He's on pace for 50+ goals.
Which he is not going to make it to wherever we get lucky enough to get a second pick.
Yeah, no, definitely.
They would have to trade up for him, which, for the record, I would do immediately. I would trade. I think I would honestly. Let's see. What does Anaheim have for draft capital right now? We've got. I would trade.
We got one first, but presumably should get two, right? If one Henry gets
let's say
traded.
You have one more. I would trade that first, the Boston second, and 2 of our third-round picks to move up and take Tig.
In the top 15.
Tig.
So to move up into the top 15, right? Yeah. Because presumably whatever second first you get is going to be a below 20 pick.
Yeah.
So
he should go probably in the early teens. And if he went 8 or 9 because someone fell in love, it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah. Or he just gets drafted by Dallas and they trade him to the Flames.
Oh, shit. Wasn't Brendan Morrow in that trade?
I think so. Yeah. That's how he made his way to Dallas, right?
I think so. Let's see. Hockey Reference, Jerome, McGinley. Let's see. Where's your... Traded by the Dallas Stars with Corey Millen. Oh, for Joe Nieuwendyk.
Okay. I was wondering if it was Joe Nieuwendyk, but I felt like that was before the time, but I guess not.
Hey, do you know who Morgan Klimchuk is?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's drafted by the Flames.
Yeah, how's he doing? Do we know?
I think he's AHL. If not overseas.
He drafted in 2013.
Yeah, he might be overseas now. He was
like
an NHL EA Sports legend back in the days. He was like an elite rating guy. Let's see, where is he now? He's in the AHL now. He's played one NHL game with the Flames in 2017-2018. He's playing with the Belleville Senators right now. I don't even know if that means he's a part of the Senators organization or not, like officially signed a contract, or he's just on AHL deals. But
all right, here we go, Eddie. We're now going to play my favorite game. Morgan Klimchuk went 28. 29, Jason Dickinson. 30, Ryan Hartman. Let's see. 44th, Tristan Yari. 58th, Tyler Bertuzzi. Let's see. Spencer Martin. Jake Gensel. Anthony Duclair. Pavel Buchnevich. Carter Verhaeghe. Oliver Bjorkstrand. Boy, wouldn't Calgary love to have Bjorkstrand right now.
Yeah, well, and the Ducks had a top 10 player in that first round where they got
19 at the 99th pick in the 2013 draft. Do you know who was drafted?
No.
This is a player in the league right now. Over the last 4 or 5 years has emerged as a perennial contender for their position award.
This before Kucherov, right? Or after?
This would be after Kucherov.
After Kucherov. 99, so 4th round? Is it a goalie?
Uh-huh.
It's not Vasi.
Huh?
It's not Vasi, no. Give me a hint. Give me a country.
They play for the West.
Oh.
They play for a Western team. I'm not going to give you the country.
Okay, it's a dead giveaway then. So he's not Canadian or American. So, is it Saros?
Hmm.
Ooh. Not bad. Not bad for 99, but he's about to get shipped out for Askarov anyway.
Boy. Ryan Graves went 110. Let's see. Oh, this is one of the Brodeur kids was in this draft. Let's see. Who's the best?
Not a bad draft for Nashville. They got Seth Jones at 4, and then got Saros at 99.
Yep.
I don't know who else they got, but probably nobody of notice. But
let's see. Yeah, I'll keep looking. Let's see. The Montreal got Jacob De La Rose with their second round pick. Because that must have been the Shea Weber trade. Or no, it couldn't have been. It has to be something else. Let's see. Oh, Nashville got Jonathan Ismail Diaby. Whoa! This doesn't mean any... Wait a minute. I'm so mad at you again already. You're in so much trouble right now and you don't even know it.
Why? What did I do?
Do you know who, with the 64th pick in the 2013 draft, the Nashville Predators drafted Jonathan Ismail Diaby? Do you know who that is?
No
you
idea.
Don't,
nope.
But you should. Do you want to know why you should know who that is?
Why?
Because they're in fucking Shoresy.
Is he actually?
Yeah.
Oh, that's why I don't. That's why you're mad.
That's why I'm so pissed at you.
I still haven't watched it.
You son of a bitch.
Part of me, like, when I go to watch it, it's like, should I just keep the bait going?
So for anybody listening, Dolo was drafted 64th overall that year. Two picks ahead of Brett Pesci. That's really funny.
Amazing. Did he play in NHL games?
Diaby, I don't think he did. I do not think he did.
I can't imagine. If any, probably a couple, a handful.
Elite prospects. Let's see what we got. No, never played in the NHL. Let's see. Yeah. Crazy.
Making it work.
He played for the Milwaukee Admirals, Cincinnati Cyclones. Yeah, so he was a tweener between the AHL and ECHL. And now he's a raps. What do they say on the show? He's a rapist. Not a rap singer. A rap singer. That's what they call him. A rap singer.
I love it.
It's bro, I'm so mad at you right now. I don't even want to talk to you. It's absurd. It's so funny, dude. It's the funniest fucking show in the world.
And it's not even that I don't want to watch it. It's just like I
think that honestly makes it worse.
It literally like blanks from my mind, and then I never end up having like a second to sit down and watch it because I know Jaden's not gonna watch it. So then we're all usually watching something we both want to watch. So then I'm like, I no excuse. So I gotta find some time to watch it. I gotta figure it out. I gotta figure this shit out. So, but the Ducks.
Yeah, the Ducks.
But the Ducks.
In case anybody was curious where the season's at.
I don't know. Big thing coming up. Something called the Trade Deadline. Something called the Trade Deadline's coming up. We've talked about who we think is going to get moved out at times, and ironically, and maybe a good thing, the two of the Ducks' three best players over the last 13 games since we last recorded have been Adam Henrique and Frank Vatrano. Adam Henrique leading the team in scoring. The only guy, actually, Troy Terry's also over a point per game, but 15 points for Adam Henrique and 14 points for Troy Terry over the last stretch of games, and Vatrano's got 10, and nobody else has more than 6. So it's been really abysmal beyond those three guys. But the two probably most tradable assets for the Ducks and the two guys who've been in the conversation publicly of who could get traded are the two guys who've been the best performers over the last 13 games. So, I mean, listen, if you're going to be bad, there's two things you want. You want your young kids still playing well and looking good and improving, and you want your tradable assets being your best players on the team. And Henrique, Vatrano, John Gibson to some extent as well have been the Ducks' best players over this last stretch of games. So, do we still think Adam Henrique's getting traded? Do you think Petrano's getting traded? Beyond that, who else are we looking at?
So, let's go to the Duckies cap-friendly page. So, yeah, I think it is unquestionable that Adam Henrique finishes the year somewhere else, unless he does something like he did tonight, where he gets in a fight and breaks his fucking hand on someone's face like an idiot.
Yeah.
Again,
all that work for nothing.
This is a very selfish take, but it is also, he's 34 right now. Like, I don't know how many years he's got left of being able to be a meaningful contributor, and I would like him to get another shot at a cup.
Mm-hmm.
And if he breaks his fucking hand fighting for this stupid-ass team, it'll be a big bummer. So I think Adam Henrique is unquestionably getting traded. I think Ilya Lyubushkin is unquestionably getting traded.
Yeah. The two big UFAs the Ducks have that are movable UFAs, because Silfverberg's the other one, but there's absolutely no way you get him in that contract out the door.
So here's the thing. I think the next tier is interesting, could potentially move bottom of the lineup players, which is Gustav Lindstrom, and Jacob Silfverberg. If they have the retention slot, Jacob Silfverberg drops down to 2.6.
Okay, yep.
That is a meaning that is not nothing, but you can work with that.
Mm-hmm.
And you can always use another team, right?
Yep.
There's no reason, I don't know what the setup is, but there's no reason certain teams. Let's see who's terrible.
That's like the
Buffalo or some bullshit.
If
like
you
that.
get somebody who really wants them, and the offer's good enough that you'll make it work, type thing.
Right.
I just can't. I can't see somebody willing to give up enough for the Ducks to almost go through hoops there to make a Silfverberg trade work. Like, again,
Right.
This is still a team that is near the bottom of the league in cap. If you're moving Henrique out, even retaining and bringing salary back, you're probably still going to need Silfverberg's contract on the books just to kind of hit the cap floor.
Maybe.
Yeah, it depends, right? It depends
Here's
on
the
what you
crazy
bring
thing.
in and what you get in return, right? So
You could move Silfverberg for Jacob Voracek's contract.
Mhm.
Get a third round pick out of it.
yeah, just eat salary in future years, right? So
No, Jacob Voracek's he's a UFA.
oh, is he? Okay.
And he's on LTIR, but they're not taking, or he's on IR, but they're not taking LTIR relief because they're still under the cap. But they have enough room from the floor that they could gain about $3.5 million. I think it would be. I think Jacob Voracek was like 8.6 or 8.3, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
They could pick up that extra bit of money, get a useful roster player out of it. Like, come on, like we're gonna say Jacob Silfverberg isn't a fucking giant improvement over like caveman Liam O'Brien. Knock it off.
Yeah.
And still be able to then use better picks, their prospects, and have extra room to be able to go out and get another meaningful player. Arizona for Silfverberg would be a very interesting one because they have a very specific contract that makes it doable. Right? That is a very specific instance, but I would pick that phone call. I would make that phone call.
Yep. I mean, they're in a position that they could fight for a playoff spot too, right? So it does make sense to get a player who can play on your roster and free up a little bit of cap space to make any additional moves if you want to go out and add somebody to make just make a little bit of a run, because Arizona by no means is guaranteed a playoff spot or is a team that's going to go far. But hey, like if you're on the cusp and you can make some moves that aren't going to cost you significant pieces of your future to just try and get in, build some excitement around a team that kind of needs some excitement right now, and nothing does that, then listen, you can get bounced in the first round, but you still made it. Right, it's still a significant strides and improvement for them. So I'm sure if they feel like they're in the race, they definitely could. Right, and like you said, you're gaining a player who can play in your roster for nothing and getting a little bit of cap relief or a little bit of extra cap space to work with to make some other moves.
Sam Carrick is a UFA, and I think that's an interesting person to watch. And then you've also got Max Jones, Isaac Lundestrom, and Brett Leeson.
Yeah,
and
those are the guys I was going to
Benoit
mention.
Olivier Gruel are also all pending RFAs.
Yeah, Those three were interesting. Leeson, Jones, Lundestrom. Because I mean, they're, again, you don't have to move them because they're not UFAs, but you just try and make the decision to get something for them now than even explore that contract discussion or trying to move their rights in the offseason, because they're kind of at that point, right, where you need to make a decision on their futures. The contract's not going to be a long-term one, but do you really need another testing season from Lundestrom and Jones and Leeson to see what you got? I mean, Leeson's been great this year. Jones and Lundestrom have both kind of dealt with their injury problems at times, but
both have looked good when they've played. Like
Yeah.
I really like. I don't have a bad like. Here is the problem. I don't have a bad thing to say about 85% of this roster.
Mhm.
The parts of concern are parts of concern, but it is what it is. Which is why I just think it's so interesting. If you're looking, like, if you're a team like Colorado, would you give up a first-round pick and Caleb Ritchie to get Isaac Lundestrom for Ryan Johansson?
Just to free that cap space. It's a lot.
I mean, you could do that. You could do. I mean, hell, you could do Lundestrom and 50% on Hatem and Reek.
Mm-hmm. I mean, they're going to be a team that's going to be looking to buy for sure with the injury problems that they have.
That gives you two guys who could potentially fill in, first of all three positions, and second of all, potentially fill in as a second-line center. Neither of those guys are second-line centers, but I know both of them are a better option right now than Ryan fucking Johansson.
Isaac Lundestrom just feels like a Colorado player. The guys that they've tried to bring
feels
in.
Feels kind of Obe Kubeli.
Yeah. Players who can play in different positions do play different roles, right? Multifaceted type players.
Right.
The Avs have kind of made a living at making those types of trades and bringing those guys in over the last couple of years. So definitely, he would be a guy I could see them interested in bringing in, whether it's a part of a bigger deal of also shipping Johansson out or not, or even just going out and just getting him, right? Getting him for third round pick or something like that, whatever they can to bring him in. It could be something that the Ducks should be interested in, but I think it makes more sense potentially in a bigger deal like that, right? Where you let him go, but you also get a little bit more in return by bringing on some salary, and it makes it a little bit easier to move guys like Adam Henrique out the door, right?
Right. And it would be insanely funny to get Ryan Johansson to Anaheim. Literally nobody would be happy. He might refuse to report.
He'll get booed on his first.
Oh god, dude, that would be. Somebody pointed it out, like mentioned it, and it made me think about it. And I have not been able to stop thinking about how funny that would be. And I hate that fucking guy. Like, let's be very clear. Like, I cannot stand that dude. But him having to come to Anaheim because he bottomed out so bad in Colorado after being a giant disappointment in Nashville would be insanely funny.
People are gonna throw plastic turtles on the ice. What about Frankie V?
This one's hard for me, man. I think they should trade him, but I don't want to. I don't want them to. I think you have to get a first round pick.
Yeah, because like he's outperformed what he's getting paid, and he reminds me of like one of those guys that goes from way more than they should every year. Or at least, like, that's the public perception, is they've gone for way more than they should. Like, the Blake Colemans and the Brendan Hagels and the Barclay Goodrows, like those types of guys, right? That have that extra year or two on their contract, are making kind of around that $3 to $3.5 million range, and are fill a role, and in this case, a goal-scoring, kind of physical, energetic forward that a team is comfortable playing on their first line. I think one of the articles I mentioned to you before we recorded was somebody saying, like, could the Rangers bring him back to play on their first line with Zibanejad and Kreider? I think those are the types of teams that would be looking to bring him in, is to play him in that position. And at that point, if that's what you're acquiring him for, the Ducks should be asking for a first-round pick, because you're getting a guy for 2 years. He's going to go to a contender. That first-round pick is going to be a late first-round pick. They're going to get 2 years out of him. I think, like, listen, if you walk out of this trade deadline and you move just Henrique and Vetrano as the two big deals, and you get 2 first-round picks this year for that, that's huge for the Ducks to walk away and have 3 first-round picks
absolutely
going into this draft.
monstrous. Yeah. If you could get Vetrano for Capo Caco, bro, or if you can get Capo Caco for Vetrano, I think you have to do it.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of really interesting possibilities. I want to keep him. Everything about me that is not the rational, analytical, whatever, wants me to keep him. It is purely an emotional thing, because I do think he provides. He provides depth scoring. This team needs goals, but I also just think from a personality standpoint,
yeah,
he just fits in really well. He's really feisty, but he's still he still seems kind of laid back. He still kind of seems like he's having fun, and then he just gets feisty when he gets feisty. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it pops off when it does, but like, he plays physical. He plays with a little bit of an edge, but like, he's not like a pest. He just has no problem mixing it up, despite being, one of the smaller guys on the ice every time he's out there. And I just like having him around. I just think he's a really fun player. I think he's a fan favorite type player, and I think it'd be cool if Anaheim was able to keep him. But I think if what you're looking at is the reality of we're either trading him this year, next year, then I think you should look at moving him this year.
Yeah, I think there's going to be considerable interest and offers out there for him. That it's going to be a type of scenario where the Ducks just get an offer that's too good to refuse, right? Like, it's
right.
He's just going to be one of the more sought after multi-year contract guys available at the deadline because of the term and his production and the role he fills. That, again, he's the Blake Coleman, Barclay Goodrow, Brandon Hagel type guy available at the deadline this year. He's just going to fill that role, and those guys always go for more than everybody expects, and the offer at the time is one that always benefits the selling team. So I think ultimately we definitely see Henry go. We definitely see Lyubushkin go. I think Vetrano's the next most likely, and then the other names we mentioned are kind of up in the air and whether they go or not. That leaves the one guy that at times we felt should get traded, will get traded, maybe not. Where do you stand on John Gibson? Because I don't know, man. It's fading a bit for me on my thoughts.
Fading in what sense? Explain that to me. What is fading?
I don't know. I have nothing to back it up. There's no statements, no comments, no nothing. But I just don't think there's going to be a suitor willing to pay what the Ducks are wanting that's also going to be able to make the cap work heading into this deadline. The teams that we earmarked as potential options for, I think New Jersey was one of them. They have Nico Daws now, who's come up and played really well. Vanacek's been kind of rebounded a little bit. They still have Schmid, so they've got 3 guys they can roll with. They don't really necessarily have to go out and make that big move. I feel like it's taken them down a little bit from the desperation I thought they'd be in at that point. Toronto was in that spot, but Wall should be coming back. Samsonov has seemingly rebounded from his AHL demotion and come back and played pretty well, and the Leafs are rolling right now. So it just feels like the teams that were needing him when we last talked about this, maybe the urgency isn't there as much as it was when we last talked about it.
Yeah, I think
purely a feel thing. Nothing other than that.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
I think the Devils still really need him.
Mm-hmm.
They're 2 points out of the wild card spot. They need it bad.
Still the most likely destination for me of where
I think so. I think beyond that, though, I do think it certainly gets a lot harder to make a case for moving him somewhere. The only other place would maybe be Carolina. But beyond that, I don't really think there's much there. Let me ask you this. Would you be willing to retain on John Gibson?
He's got how many left? How many?
I think he's got 3 years left.
3 years?
Let's check. Yeah, 3 more years. 24, 25, 25, 26, 26, 27. Yeah, so he's a free agent summer of 27.
I think it depends on what you're getting in return.
No. Let's say you can get a return that is roughly equatable, right? Let's say within 10% of winning or losing the trade. So there's a little bit of wiggle room, like, oh, not the best value, or oh, they got a little extra value, whatever. But you're not getting like totally ripped off, and you're not, getting 7 first-round picks because he turned into a $3 million player or whatever the fuck.
No,
just on principle, for 3 more years plus this, whatever's left of this one, would you retain salary?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think I'd go as high as 50%, but I'd retain around 15-20% of it. So a couple
I think it's
at
$2
most.
million. I think $2 million is the answer for me.
Yeah.
If you turn him into a player who is worth less than $4.5 million against the cap, he becomes a very attractive option.
Oh, for 100%, yeah. And it's only $2 million for the next couple of years, and it doesn't really affect you next year. It maybe starts hurting you a little bit near the end of that second year into the final year, but looking
if the cap goes up,
yeah, it's negligible. It's $2 million, right? So unless you're pushed to go up against the cap, which the Ducks rarely are, it's not something that's going to hurt you too much. So if it's the difference between winning and losing that trade, and if it helps you get something a little extra, that's going to benefit you in the long run, I'm all for it, man. I don't think it's the worst deal to retain salary on, and if it's not something significant like half of that, like if it's not 3.2 million or whatever, I'm fine with around that 2 million mark, and I think that works for both sides, right? Where the Ducks aren't retaining too much, that's going to hurt them, and then if the other team gets John Gibson at less than 4.5, like you said, which is a really good value deal for them for the next couple of years.
Yeah, I think. Yes, I think you can only. I don't think you can retain just to move him. I think that's a waste. But I certainly think there's value in if we can get, again, 5 to 10%, whatever direction you want to look at it, that you have to seriously consider it. And I think he certainly earned it and deserved it. And I've talked about that before. And I know that's not the best way to look at some of these things, but I do think, you never want to be in a position where people are bad-mouthing your organization because they don't feel like you take care of them or you didn't honor their service and things like that. I do think that stuff matters.
2 surprise teams for John Gibson.
Okay.
First one, you've mentioned this before. I don't know how a deal like this would get worked out, but the Kings as a potential landing spot. I mean, their slide from grace has been historic.
It's Arvidsson. It's Victor Arvidsson. It's the only way it works. You have to eat probably 1.5 to 2 million. It's Victor Arvidsson, and then you have to figure out what.
The Kings need to do something because they're in almost a win it before Kopitar and Doughty retire situation. Talbot and Rittich are UFAs, so it makes sense for them to say, okay, we're gonna go get John Gibson. We're gonna bring him in for the next 3 years. And we're going to see what we can do with this. Now, I think the Kings' probably number one target, if they can somehow make it work, is UC Saros, if he does end up leaving Nashville, to bring in a younger goaltender to fit into their system. But I wouldn't rule it out because Talbot's been injured and he's kind of fallen off from the way he started the year, and Rittich is not a number one goaltender.
Right. Sorry. The other thing is nobody has seen, or very few teams have gotten as good of a consistent look at the ups and downs of John Gibson's career than the LA Kings. Like, if anybody is going to be in a position to be like, no, I think we can make this work, it would be LA. He doesn't have to necessarily move right away. Like, maybe, you move over the summer or something like that, because he is in Laguna, I think. And, whatever.
He knows a lot of those guys, and it's less of a transition.
He knows a lot of those guys. Not a big deal. That, it's a lot easier on his kids and things like that, I am sure. Moving across a city or from one city to another, like, that are next to each other is significantly easier. Or between 2 counties touching each other, whatever. It's all the same shit.
Yep.
Don't tell anybody outside of this podcast I said that. But I do think LA and New Jersey make the most sense. And I do think if you're LA and you're Rob Blake, you have put yourself in a very weird spot. I think Eric Stevens just wrote about this, that like Rob Blake's ass is on the chopping block now.
Yeah.
He fired Todd McClellan, who up until 4 weeks ago, was like
Coach
everybody was
candidate.
talking he was a fucking Jack Adams guy. Everybody was like, he's doing a great job. Look at this team, blah, 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 blah. You know, they're not even getting production from PLD.
Like 11 in a row? Something ridiculous?
Something obnoxious.
Yeah.
Let's see. LA Kings.
Which is insane because they're still 24, 16,
3-5-2.
There was a stretch there. I gotta look this up.
Schedule.
Yeah, I think right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 in a row. And then 10 of their last 11 before that.
And well, here's the other thing. So 8 in a row, and then it's 1 win against Carolina, then it's 2 losses, then it's 1 win against the Rangers, and then 4 fucking losses. Like,
yeah, and then they just got blown out by the Sabres. The Sabres 7-0 tonight. So doesn't get any easier for them. Yeah, I feel like a move is coming for them. They're going to get desperate because they're in a good spot still. They can turn it around. But I'm imagining probably in wild card right now. Yeah, number 1 wild card standing. St. Louis is right there. The Kings have some games in hand, but Predators and Calgary and Seattle and Minnesota are all pressing for that spot. So they're in a race now. And the main difference for them, I think, is goaltending, because Talbot has not been as dominant as he was to start the year. And then, again, like I said, Rittich isn't a starter. So I think they'll go down the younger route first, test the waters for the guys like Saros that are out there and available. But ultimately, that could bring you back to John Gibson. I think New Jersey might honestly be in the same position as well, because they have a younger core to look at, that they might be looking for the younger starter that they can build around to start with. But ultimately, one team's going to get him and one team's not, and John Gibson, I think, is going to be one of the next best options. The other team I was looking at is Philadelphia. The whole Carter Hart situation, and not knowing what's going to go on there with him, and when and if he's going to be back in the NHL, or whether he even should be back in the NHL. They're a team that's in a very good position, but they're running with Cal Peterson and Samuel Ersson right now. A team that is not young.
Cal Peterson for John Gibson is a fascinating trade.
The cap space would be interesting, but they do have some bigger contracts, and I mean, if LA can make it work, then Philadelphia can make it work.
Apparently, they hate Morgan Frost.
I mean, we've already made trades with them once this year. The Drysdale trade, a big trade. It would be interesting, man. It's one they definitely didn't think they'd have to be doing, but no Carter Hart, presumably for a long time. They might do it. I mean, they're in a position they have to do something. And they would be the one team, I think, that wouldn't be
Eddy. Are you looking at their cap friendly page?
Philly, yep.
Okay. So you see where it says defense?
Yep.
Scroll down.
Yep.
See where it says goalies?
Yep.
Scroll down.
Yep.
See where it says non-roster?
Yeah.
Scroll down.
Yeah.
See where it says injured reserve? Ryan Ellis.
Yeah.
Now, if you look to the right, he makes $6.25 million a year against the cap for 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
$150,000 less than John Gibson for the exact same span.
Yep.
That is a guaranteed LTIR contract.
Mm-hmm. And they're
Ryan
not
Ellis
using his LTIR right
done.
now either. So
nope. Eddy, how is Ryan Ellis not on the Anaheim Ducks right now?
Listen, man, like, Carter Hart's an RFA. They're not going to make a decision until they find out what is actually going to happen with that. I don't think they're going to...
We don't need to get into the whole thing. None of those guys are playing for 2 years. At least 2 years. They are not NHL players for at least the next 2 years. Mm-hmm. Beyond that, I got to be honest, it's not looking fucking great.
No. But what I mean by that is I don't think they're going to go the young goaltender route, because there's still... There's still going to be a belief that he could potentially come back. So I don't think but the timeline makes sense for them. You get John Gibson for 3 years while this gets sorted out. You then have a decision to make after that, where is
you just extended Samuel Ersson. He makes less than $1.5 million.
And Erson's proved he was a good backup this year behind Carter Hart, just not the starting guy. Cal Peterson, again, he makes $5 million, which is unbelievable.
That's insane.
But it's only for the next 2 years, so it is what it is. And again, like you said, I mean, whether it's Cal Peterson coming back or it's Ryan Ellis, it's up to the Flyers. I think either one of them could be the guy that comes back at this point. And then you just have to look at prospects from their prospects, if they have any left after we hijacked their number one prospect at Cutter Gauthier. But you're not looking at a Matvei Michkov, but maybe Bobby Brink has played some games with the Flyers this year, hasn't stuck around. He's looked pretty good. He could be a guy that you look at bringing in. They've got some good young defensemen as well. Like it's an interesting option. It's an interesting option that wasn't available. They got 2 first-round picks, theirs and Florida, which are not. They're going to be late, but they have the assets to make it work, and they definitely have the need and desire. So if it happens, it's going to be one of those 3 teams. I think it's got to be New Jersey, LA, or Florida, or Philadelphia, just because of the need for a goaltender, the desperation that's going to mount, and the positions that each of those teams are in to try and make a run.
Eddie, does Cal Peterson's $5 million contract and Garnet Hathaway's $2.4, just under, $1 million contract make too much sense?
You just want a Garnet Hathaway.
No, I don't. Please don't do this to me.
Ross
I already
Johnston,
have to deal.
Fourth line.
I already have to deal with Johnny Evans being back from fucking United. I can't have Garnet Hathaway anywhere near the Ducks. They can trade him immediately. As far as I hate that fucking guy.
Yeah. It does. It does make sense because it's money you can move, right?
That makes a lot of sense. And besides, if we were going for the ultimate me fourth line, it's bring back Nicolas Deslauriers.
Yeah.
And have Johnston and Deslauriers on opposite wings of Benoit Gros. That's the dream right there.
I do think the big piece for the Ducks potentially would be getting Bobby Brink from the Flyers, because it seems like of the young players, I mean, obviously Owen Tippett and Morgan Frost have been there all year, and Farabee and Konechny are no longer prospects for that team. They're core players. And Tyson Forrester seems to be the guy that's taken over from Bobby Brink and solidified that roster spot. And I mean, Brink was good this year. He had 18 points, I think, in about 30-some-odd games, 38 games for the Flyers. He's back down in the AHL right now, where he's almost at a point per game. It'd be a nice little piece, nice little winger depth that the Ducks could bring into the system. A guy that is either NHL ready or close to being NHL ready. You get a pick in there as well. There's some salary coming back. You maybe get some more compensation with players, picks, prospects for bringing that salary back to make the deal work. And even if you decide to retain on the deal as well, we already talked about that. You sweeten the pot a little bit. So Flyers definitely have the assets. You say maybe again. I'm sure Flyers fans that would, if any of them were listening to this, they'd be like, absolutely not. That's insane. But maybe you look at Brink and a first-round pick and you start there and see how things go, right? I'm sure that that feels like an overpayment for some, but the desperation is going to be real for the Flyers. I don't think they expected to be in the position that they're at, and with the way this roster is constructed, you got to take advantage of the fact that you're in a good position to make a run this year.
100%. No, I think it's an interesting one, especially because they've been talking a lot about trying to find a balance between developing their young guys and being aggressive within their window and appreciating, the kind of the gift of a season they've found themselves with.
Well, listen, didn't they just extend Owen Tippett to a pretty significant amount of money, and this is his last year? Yes, they did. His last year making 1.5, he goes to 6.2 next year, and I believe, Sanheim's extension is already already started, but.
Eddie,
that's a big chunk of their cap going into that next year.
There are 2 players real quick I want to mention before I mention something else.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think Vakanainen gets traded?
I mean, it's possible. I think with Lyubushkin going out the door, probably not. But again, I mean, if you get a good offer, like you've got guys who could fill the role. I mean, Zellweger can easily come back up. Minchikov is back now. You have Gustav Lindstrom who's been brought in. Like,
right.
It's not out of the realm of possibility. I think it's 50-50. I think you just have to have a team that's interested in him and wants to pay enough to make it willing for the Ducks to ship him out the door.
I could certainly see him being more of a traded his RFA rights at the draft player.
Mm-hmm. Or an added piece of another trade where you're bringing some depth back, right? So.
The other question I had for you is Ryan Strome. Is there any world you think in which he gets moved? No. Or do you think any shine on that apple is quickly falling off and he makes $5 million for like 3 more years after this one?
I think he makes too much for too long, and there's 2 other players that make a decent amount of money on this roster we've already talked about that are more likely to get traded by a significant margin. Like Henrique and Vetrano are way more likely to get shipped out to the door, and Henrique is almost a foregone conclusion for me. With Henrique going, I don't think you can one, move Strome out, or find a team that'd be willing to take on that contract at this point.
Strome for Mantha, baby.
I think unless you're doing a deal like that, right? That's the only way I could see it happening. But then I don't see a world where you move all 3 of them like that. That seems like a little bit of an overkill and too much. Like I don't think you ever really see too many teams do that much reshuffling of core roster players at the deadline. So I think the most we see is probably a big name players is Vetrano and Henrique. I don't think we get, and maybe Gibson. Like that's the trio I could see, because you can understand that, you can justify that. Beyond that, Strome might be the big name in the big money earners. He's probably the 4th most likely, but there's a big gap, I think, between Henrique, Vetrano, Gibson, and then Strome's like way down here in likeliness of getting moved out.
Can I ask you? All right, I want to ask you one last question, then we can talk about whatever you want to talk about.
Yeah, go for it.
Why shouldn't Anaheim trade Troy Terry this year?
He started slow, and I would have normally said you don't want to trade an asset like that at its lowest value. But he's quickly heated up.
Here's the thing.
Yeah.
He has the rest of this year and next year without any trade protection. After that, he gets a modified no trade clause where he can pick a 10-team no trade list. The other thing that I think is worth pointing here is, boy, wouldn't say Winnipeg love to get their hands on him? Mm-hmm. Wouldn't Pittsburgh love to get their hands on him?
Wouldn't anybody, right?
Yes, but I think there are a handful of teams he makes a lot of sense for. I think he makes a lot of sense for Florida. If you're Florida, instead of trading or instead of extending Sam Reinhart, you can add a 2-way winger with term who's going to come in for less money than Reinhart is going to get. He's younger. He's going to have term. He's a really good defender. He could fit really are you telling me being able to go Tkachuk, Barkov, and Lundell Terry isn't a really exciting prospect if you're Florida? Mm-hmm. He fits in on their timeline age-wise. He's younger than Tkachuk, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, why shouldn't Anaheim trade Troy Terry right now? Other than he's awesome and we adore him. He's under contract. He means a lot to this franchise, clearly. Other than all of that, which I don't think is nothing. I'm not trying to be funny. Instead of all this Trevor Zegras bullshit, why doesn't it make more sense to trade Troy Terry?
I mean, listen, I don't have a solid answer to say and solid argument to say it's not a good idea, or it's not. It's better wording of that is it's not a bad idea to consider moving him out. It just depends on what you're going to get for him. But again, he is 26. He's got 7 years left on this deal at $7 million. It's not the worst deal. There's plenty of teams that I think could be willing to take that on. Like you said, Florida instead of having to re-sign Sam Reinhart in a contract year for close probably to $10 million the way he's playing right now, you can get Troy Terry for $7 for the next 7 years and extend that window a little bit and have a bit more cap space to work with. I definitely think that would be something they would be interested in, because I feel like they could think that they'd be able to get just as much out of Troy Terry as they got out of Sam Reinhart, putting him in the same situation. I think personally it would be something that happens in the offseason. I don't think I can't. It just does not feel like a deadline day deal. It doesn't. It doesn't make, for me. It doesn't make sense for the Ducks to move him at the deadline. I don't think it makes sense for those teams to acquire him at the deadline. Well, if we're talking Florida, you might as well just run out the year with Sam Reinhart as your personal rental, and then look to make that trade in the offseason to acquire a player like Troy Terry and just opt to not re-sign Reinhart, right?
Right.
So I think it doesn't make sense for the Ducks now in the short term, but beyond this season, beyond heading into the draft and free agency and in that time period, I think it's certainly a possibility. I think there will be teams that would definitely inquire on it, and I wouldn't say it's the worst idea in the world, depending on what you can get in return. And the return's going to be huge on a player like Troy Terry with the term that he has and the talent that he has. There's a lot of rosters that he could fit in. We'd even mentioned Colorado. I think that could be a great fit for him as well. And hometown for him as well. So, yeah, I can't argue, man. I don't think it's the worst idea in the world. I really don't. I just think like most trades, but it depends on what you're going to get in return and how that fits into whatever the timeline would be for the Ducks and how that timeline changes that now that you've moved Troy Terry out the door. Because more likely than not, it shrinks your timeline, or it shrinks is probably not the best word, but it makes your projections for when you make the playoffs probably a little bit later, a couple of years more down the road, that you've lost that established player, because you're likely not getting someone as good right now as Troy Terry is back in that trade. You're likely getting futures, either prospects or picks. Ideally, in this scenario, you're getting prospects that can fill out the holes in your roster that you have right now. The weaker depth points of your prospect pool. I think that's what you're hoping for.
Let's pivot off of that into this conversation. What are those holes?
I mean, they've done a really good job of filling them, because the hole you would have said is goal-scoring talent on the wing, and they moved out from a position of strength on defense and Jamie Drysdale and brought in Cutter Gauthier. I would still say at wing, and whether it's another goal scorer or just a multi-talented winger, because Jacob Perreault hasn't really developed the way you hoped. Pastujov is starting to get going, but still a long ways away. Tracy hasn't really gone the way you hoped either. So I think at wing they're still looking at another player, but you're likely getting that in the top half of this draft. Beyond that, like it's tough, man. And like maybe it's being a bit of a homer and liking our prospects a little bit too much, but like, you can't really point to a weakness at defense when you're rocking Lacombe, Minchikov, Zellweger, Tristan Luneau, right? Like it's hard to poke holes in that, and then you've still got guys like Noah Warren at center. Like that's definitely not a positional weakness for the Ducks now, considering Cutter Gauthier could play center, but then you've got McTavish and Leo Carlsson now, so you really aren't hurting for your likely 1-2 punch down the middle is Carlsson, McTavish for the next however many years, and Zegras is still in that mix as well, as being a guy that could play there. So I would say if there is any holes for the Ducks, it's another winger, but I don't see it as much of a hole now that you've brought in Cutter Gauthier.
Do you think you could talk Columbus into Troy Terry, Isaac Lundestrom, Drew Hellison, and a third-round pick for Patrick Laine and David Jiricek?
Isaac Lundestrom, Drew Hellison. Yeah, I think the want from Columbus to move on from Patrick Laine is there. I think the want for Patrick Laine to move on from Columbus is also there for the player side of things. The hang-up becomes David Jiricek, right? Like that's the hang-up in that deal is if the Ducks are exploring that, they're willing to talk about moving on from Troy Terry. I think the rest of that pieces of the deal are there's no hang-ups there for the Ducks side of thing. And again, we've already heard the rumors and everything about Patrick Laine and Columbus. So yeah, the real hang-up is David Jiricek and whether Columbus would move on from him or if they feel like that deal is even. But you do get Drew Helleson in return, so you aren't completely void of getting some sort of depth or replacement at the position. Still a right shot defenseman. Troy Terry's the best player in that deal, so you do need to make up for it somewhere else. And then obviously Helleson and Lindstrom in the 3rd round pick offset it. So I think it's a fair deal. I think it is an interesting one for the Ducks because you move Troy Terry out, but you bring another winger in who can still contribute at this close to the same level, maybe provide a different thing that the Ducks need in terms of being a potential 40 to 50 goal scoring threat in this team.
Right.
And you bring in David Jiricek, who's among the top defensive prospects in this league. I would love it personally. I love Troy Terry, but ever since we've been linked with Patrick Laine, we've talked about how this would be a perfect fit for a Ducks team that's void of goal scoring talent. And then David Jiricek's almost a cherry on top there.
Yeah, I mean, I think, if you start to look at a Minchikov, Jiricek, Zellweger, Leno top 4 to go with your Carlson, McTavish, Gauthier, Zegras forward group.
Line A in there too.
Right. Like, shit, man.
Yeah.
I don't know.
There's a lot to like about that. I think the hang-up, it would be from Columbus's end. Again, whether they're willing to move on from Jiricek and what they even want to do at this point. Like,
right.
Are they going to just tear it down? Because you felt like, bringing in Goodrow meant, no, they're not going to tear it down. They're going to try, and it just has not worked out. They're in an interesting situation where they got to figure that out. And this would mean they're not willing to tear it down, and they're bringing in Troy Terry to try and be competitive and hope that Fantilli continues to progress, and Ken Johnson also continues to do well, and that maybe moving out what they deem as a problematic player in Patrick Laine and bringing in a guy like Troy Terry helps kind of rejuvenate that a little bit. So it is all about the direction that the Blue Jackets want to go in, but I think ultimately it is a deal that works out for both teams. It's just whether Jiricek tips the scales or not.
Right. At this point, dude, I think that the 2 places of concern on this roster are right defense and goal scoring. I think you can look at McTavish's boom and bust goal scoring potential. You can look at Leo Carlson's ability to make plays. He has shown an ability to finish. He has shown an ability to link plays together. You can look at Cutter Gauthier and the fact that they flat out said, this dude scores goals in big games. We wanted him. You're still about another shooter short.
I think they're lacking in this word is maybe thrown out improperly, but like an elite goal scorer, a pure sniper, a pure goal scorer, like that is their skill set. I feel like they are void of having one of those, where I think Cutter Gauthier is a great shooter. I don't think he's going to come into the league and ever really be that pure shooter, right? Like that Patrick Laine type guy. It's why any deal we've ever mentioned about Gibson going to New Jersey, I've said you got to try and get Alexander Holtz.
Right.
I mean, he still has a lot of development to go, but the one thing that kid has always had is one of the best shots in the last few drafts that anybody's ever seen. He's a very, very quick release, and he brings a different aspect to this Ducks pool and system of wingers that they have. Where you thought maybe Perreault could be that guy, Alexander Holtz is that guy at another level, a little bit more developed already, and a lot more potential for being that 30 to 40 guy every season down the road. That's why you should look at a Laine or trying to acquire a guy like that. The problem is there just aren't too many guys like that you can go out and get. Like that's the thing. And even at the top end of this draft, I mean, Cole Yzerman, right? Like that's the guy that you hope to get. And why, when even with the struggles that Cole Yzerman has had this year, I think if you're not getting Celebrini, if you're the Ducks and what you need right now, he's the guy you got to go get, because that's what they're short on. And yeah, moving Drysdale, I think, in a secondary outside of the goal scoring need, moving Drysdale does mean that you probably need to bring in another right shot defenseman who has top 4 potential. I don't think you need an elite right shot defenseman, but Tristan Luneau, I guess, can fill that role, and he could be that guy. But you need another one, because it's a little bit of a drop off from Luneau to Warren at this point, right? So it wouldn't hurt to bring somebody else in.
Yeah, and again, things worth saying. Tyson Hines has played his offside. Olen Zellweger has played his offside. Jackson Lacombe has played his offside. Eero Vakanainen has played his offside. Like, there are ways to create a strong top 4 that don't require Anaheim to go out and get another right-handed defenseman.
Yep.
It is more of a, boy, it sure would be nice to have a couple of these guys in the pipeline.
Yeah, 100%.
I still really like Noah Warren, and I really like the way he fits into the picture of what this blue line looks like it has the chance to turn into. But I would be kidding you if I didn't say it would be really nice if we had the best 5-6 right D. Right? The best third pair right defenseman in the league. Like, that would rock.
Yeah.
And that requires either someone to show up and be special out of nowhere, and maybe that's a Levchinov or something like that. Maybe that's Connor Smith or Rodwin Dionisio or one of these guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
But going out and getting someone from the top of the draft, similar to the Gauthier situation, makes a lot of sense to me.
Is it this year that the draft is in Vegas at the Sphere?
Yeah, no.
Or is that next year?
It's next year. This year it's in Montreal, I think.
Because I saw something about the Rangers owner wanted to keep their pick for the year that they're in the Sphere. Because I was saying, like,
oh, then maybe that is this year. Maybe I'm wrong.
Let me check. 2024. So it changes how I word this next point. It is it's at the Sphere in Las Vegas this year. So
yeah, because what's his name? James Dolan, you're right, wanted to be able to make the pick and make it in.
So assuming the Rangers, I know. Assuming the Rangers hold on to their pick this year, which they absolutely shouldn't, but let's assume they do. If you can move Vetrano and Henrique to the Rangers, and you get Capo Caco and your boy Braden Schneider coming back.
Yep.
You get a right shot defenseman, you get a goal scoring winger in Capo Caco, and then you can move John Gibson out the door in a trade to New Jersey, and you get Alexander Holtz plus back. Does that fill all the holes of weakness we've talked about? You get Caco and Holtz on the
100%
wing,
it does.
and you get Schneider at right D, and you get some other pieces in there, but you fill those.
I'll tell you right now, if you just swing a deal and get Schneider and Caco,
yeah, it does that already. Yeah.
To me, because now what that does is that gives you Braden Schneider, who fits that profile similar to what Noah Warren is going to be, which is a hard-nosed right-handed shot who is going to be able to step up, make big hits. You have some, work on his game that needs to be done. He hasn't quite followed up on the promise of his rookie season and that rookie run in the playoffs that he had. But I think it's certainly reasonable to say that the potential is there. I also think for Braden Schneider, and again, the type of game that he plays, me personally, and the way I like that things work, if I can go get a kid who was drafted high because of his physicality, his defensive ability, and I get to say, oh, you got to spend 2-3 years playing with Jacob Trouba. Now I'm going to have another 2 to 3 years of you playing with Radko Gudas. And then on top of that, you're going to be under the guy who was an integral part of the Pelech Pulock development. Boy, I'm feeling really good. Oh, and I also have Scott Niedermayer in my building who helps to work on our defensive stuff. Like, again, I have tweeted about this, and I know we have all talked about this online and different things like that. There has been a little bit of a little bit of bloom off the rose, I guess is how I want to say it, with Cronin and some of the warts and things. And I know a lot of people are very frustrated with Ross Johnston and Brett Leeson and some of the way that thing. People are frustrated with the way he's deployed the power play with some of the different things. I think we can all safely say this team has made definitive strides under him in a meaningful way, and the things that we are upset about are things that were already problems, and we just would have liked to see move farther forward as some of the other parts of the team have moved farther forward under Greg Cronin. Mm-hmm. I really like the idea of kind of taking the Montreal approach where they're just like, oh, we need forwards and really we need centers. So we're going to go out and trade for Kirby Dack. We're going to go out and trade for Alexander Newhook. We're just going to go find guys and see if Martin St. Louis can fix them because they're young and they're talented and he's really smart and he's a really good coach, or we think he's a really good coach. Can he fix these guys and we can really blow up on the cheap? I think doing something like that with Braden Schneider and Greg Cronin makes a lot of sense. Barclay Goodrow, Capo Caco, Braden Schneider, conditional first, where maybe it's a first if they make it to the Eastern Conference Finals and a second if they don't, right? For 50% of Rico and Vetrano and Gustav Lindstrom or some bullshit, or Vakanainen.
Yeah.
Dude, I make that deal right now. I make that deal immediately.
Yeah, while it does feel like a video game type trade, when you look at the Rangers roster, like it starts to make a little bit more sense, because the Rangers have two significant RFAs next year needing contracts. One of them being Capo Caco, the other one being Braden Schneider. They only have $4 million of cap space. The only real guy coming off the books and not really coming off the books is Ryan Lindgren, because he's an RFA as well. He's making $3 million. I would imagine they would like to keep him keep him, Miller, Trouba, and Fox. Well, right there's your top four. There's your four guys, and Braden Schneider is having a good year and had a good year last year and is playing a lot of games in the NHL. I'm sure he's going to want to make more than the $925,000 on his entry-level contract that he's making right now. You've got 2 years left of Igor Shesterkin making 5.6 before that guy demands $10 to $11 million in this league. You've got 2 years left of RFA status on Alexis Lafreniere making 2.3, and the way he started to progress, he's going to want more money. While you've still got 3 years of Panarin and 4 years of Chris Kreider that you're going to want to try and 3 years of Trouba that you're going to want to try and win a cup in this time period. So, and you've got Cheadle on long-term injury reserve that you have to bring back as well. So it just starts to make a little bit more sense.
Yeah.
Right? Is you want to bring back Philip Hedl to play. You have to move out probably Barclay Goodrow for the salary to make work, but you
have to bring Goodrow in just more than anything to get him on the fucking roster.
Yeah, you bring up Henrique and Vetrano, who make that top 9,
yes,
let alone top 6, like significantly better. You address the needs of having a third line center, and Adam Henrique is more than qualified third line center. You bring in Vetrano, who's familiar with that team and that system recently, to play with guys he's familiar with, and Kreider and Zibanejad on the top line, and really establish some depth there. You lose Schneider, who, again, and Kako, who are future pieces, who Schneider's playing really well, Kako's struggling, but Kako gets the offset immediately by Vetrano and Henrique, and you bring in Vakanainen to offset what you lose in Schneider, but be a reliable bottom pair guy who is going to rotate in with guys like Zach Jones and Eric Gustafsson anyway. You don't really lose anything in the short term for the Rangers, and you get two guys who fit into that window. Henrique is for the run this year. Vetrano is for the run this year and next year.
Right.
It doesn't affect your ability whatsoever to re-sign Lafreniere and and Shesterkin, because both of those contracts are done before those extensions even kick in. It just starts to make a lot of sense, which, I mean, of course means it's not going to happen, because every time we convince ourselves something makes sense, it doesn't happen. But it all just kind of leans in a long-winded way to Kakko and Schneider actually being potentially more available than it may seem, just because they are due for contract extensions at the end of this season.
Yeah, it's one of, again, like you said, it's one of those things that makes so much sense it'll never happen. But I don't want to ignore that it makes a lot of sense for both teams. Like, Nick Zerreris, God, I hope I say this right, Nick. I'm sorry if I say it wrong, but Nick Zerreris of the Liberty Blue Pod. I've been talking to him a bit on Twitter about some of this. Excuse me.
I was looking at Barclay Goodrow's modified no trade clause too. He's got a 15-team no trade list.
Yeah, he would 100%. Sorry about that. I had to cough. Yeah, he would have to waive off on it. And
that would be the toughest part of it.
Here's the thing that's really funny. The other part of this is, as Nick has pointed out to me a few times, Chris Drury would probably rather trade his own son than trade Braden Schneider, because Braden Schneider is, again, to the reason that I want him, a real classic 200 hockey man type dude. Mm-hmm. And Chris Drury is a 200 hockey man type dude. And so, he's joked with me that, like, Chris Drury would trade his own son before he traded Braden Schneider. But it just makes a lot of sense. Braden Schneider's only playing about 15 minutes a night right now, 15 and a half minutes. They have Trouba and they have Fox. That's the top of their right. They've got Miller. It's just not going to... There's just not a lot of things.
You can love him as much as you want, but you're not moving Fox and you're not moving Trouba. And you're not moving Keandre Miller. And then you're not playing Fox or Trouba on their offside, and I don't really think you're playing Braden Schneider on lefty with Trouba, presumably, at that point, because Miller plays with Fox, I believe, right? And you're not playing Schneider on the left side with Fox. It just becomes a luxury that, again, a little bit same to Drysdale in the same sense and why we moved him, but it just becomes a luxury at that position that you really are kind of wasting it away, and you've got to use it to fill positions of need somewhere else. And for the Rangers specifically right now, to try and win a Stanley Cup before this window shrinks, because you've got really just these 2 years before it gets really, really tough to fit the rest of this team together.
Yeah, according to Cap Friendly, it's Lindgren, Fox, and Miller Trouba. Which, Jesus, man. Keandre Miller and Jacob Trouba, that is just like...
That's a scary
a whole lot of beat American right there, baby. That's good stuff. Mm-hmm. That is real good stuff. But yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense. It's obviously not going to happen. It's going to be really curious to see what the Rangers do. But, I think if they're going to move on from a young forward, I think Kaapo Kakko is it. Like you said, they want to get Hedl back. There's no guarantee about that. He's had some real hard, or I want to say real hard time, real bad luck fighting concussions. And it seems, based on what I have seen, that it's kind of we don't know if he's coming back. We just know, we want him to be healthy. Mm-hmm. So, you certainly can't bank on that, but you also can't, overcommit. You are going to need to pay Keandre Miller in a couple years. You're not going to need to pay Shesterkin. You're going to need to pay Lafreniere. Like, Cooley, who's been a huge bright spot for them this year, they're going to have to pay him in a couple years. Like, you can't overextend yourself. And by adding two guys who help for this window, and then one of them being able to help for the next one, and you never know, maybe they re-sign Henrique in the summer on a really low deal. Like, there's just a lot there to like for both teams. Barclay Goodrow, that's not necessarily the best contract. He's got 3 more years after this one at a little over $3.6 million. Anaheim, if anybody, can be able to absorb that and figure out something to do with the guy. Like, it's not that big of a deal.
I mean, he makes the same as Vetrano would for the next 2 years anyway, so you're just basically replacing Vetrano with Goodrow for the time being. And again, I think with 2 years left on that deal, when it might become an issue, you could presumably ship him out and retain him at that point anyway. And I don't think it's an issue.
Buy him out.
Yeah, or buy him out, yeah. So I don't know, man. This would be the one of all the ones we've talked about, ones that make sense that never turn out. Like this would be near the top of my list of ones that I think should turn out, and it's just one that again it makes so much sense for both teams because Vetrano and Henrique in the short term fit into all the scenarios we talked about, and being there for this year in Henrique and Vetrano, and next year for Vetrano. They expire in enough time that it's not hurting the Shesterkin extension, the Lafreniere extension. When those expire, you hope that Othman, who's in the AHL playing well now, steps in on his ELC and can contribute to the same level that Vetrano and Henrique did. So that becomes your cheap replacement for the Rangers. You've got Gabe Perreault, who will be coming in at that point as well for the Rangers. So up front, you're really not struggling at all.
Right.
The only loss is Schneider, but you hope that in that time period you've won a Stanley Cup or two.
Right, and then it doesn't fucking matter.
And it doesn't matter. So you're losing Schneider to win potentially a Stanley Cup, right? So, I mean, and again, that's what those teams have to do. You're going to lose young players to try and add to your roster now to win a Stanley Cup, and if Schneider's playing 15 minutes a night, it's a lot more valuable to have Henrique or Vetrano in that top 9 contributing on a nightly basis than it is to have Schneider for the next 2 years playing 15 minutes a night until Trouba's contract expires, and then you decide if you want to keep Schneider and move on from Trouba at that point.
Right. No, 100%, man. I couldn't agree with you more.
Needs to come soon. Need to see that trade go across the line. And then
I would like to see Henrique move sooner than later, man.
Yeah. I mean, listen, the Rangers are going to be desperate because they were in on
Lindholm and Monahan, probably.
Yeah, and Monahan. Yeah. So they're going to want to do something, and clearly they're looking at center. And if you can, basically cover 2 of your needs in one there with the first line winger and the center position in Henrique and Vetrano, there's not many better places to go to get that done than Anaheim right now. I got to stop talking about this trade because I keep talking about how it makes so much more sense. But then again, you're bringing in a familiar face in Frank Vetrano that everybody in New York loved. So that doesn't help. That doesn't hurt either. It's the same argument we've made for Adam Henrique returning to New Jersey, but even more significant because Vetrano was a member of the Rangers within the last couple of years, not 5, 6, 7 years ago, right? So, yeah, it's one I'd be looking forward to.
Brendan Dillon makes $3.9 million.
Mm-hmm. I don't know how he scammed his way to that, but
Alex Iafallo makes $4 million for this year and next year.
Yeah, Winnipeg's got some interesting contracts on their books.
Wouldn't it be fun to do, I don't know, Troy Terry and Euro Vakanainen for Brendan Dillon, Alex Iafallo, Brad Lambert, and the 2025 first-round pick?
I never would have thought that you'd be lobbying for Brad Lambert to come to.
We can go after Chaz Lucius. We can go after both of
I'm
2021 ridiculous name boys.
I'm all for bringing in Brad Lambert.
Because boy, you want to talk about adding some speed and some potential finishing ability. Brad Lambert, man. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, and he's been having a good year, I'm pretty sure, in the AHL this year too.
Boy, howdy. I'm just saying, man.
It's not a bad one. It's a tough one seeing Troy Terry go. That would be a tougher one. That's an off-season one to get done if he gets done. But the Jets would be set because they've got Scheifele for 8 years, Connor for the next 3, Ehlers for the next 2, Iafallo would be coming this way, so it wouldn't matter. Niederreiter for 4, Velarde for 2, Lowry for 3. So everybody's kind of locked down. Dillon only affects the Ducks this year because he's a UFA. So, and Hellebuck's done for the next 8. So you bring Troy Terry in for the next 7. You've got a nice little window of a couple years to run with this core.
Buddy, Brad Lambert, right shot, right side, speed for fucking days. 14 and 15 in 37 games for Manitoba.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, I'm just saying, man.
It's not bad. It's definitely.
And then imagine all of the best players that play for Winnipeg would be American. And that would be really funny.
Well, no, Mark Scheifele's Canadian, is he not?
Right, that's why I said all the best players.
Oh, wow. So what? Just Kyle O'Connor and Hellebuck? That's it.
Oh, that's right.
Troy
Josh
Terry?
Morrissey's a Canadian.
Josh Morrissey is Canadian. Yeah.
Fucking coward.
Nikolai Ehlers is from Denmark. So
Nikolai Ehlers is sick as hell, dude.
yeah.
But yeah, no, I forgot Joshua Morrissey is Canadian. I was thinking he was American, and I was like, oh.
No, I mean,
Connor
you're not wrong. I
Morrissey.
mean, probably the two best players on that team are Kyle Connor and Connor Hellebuck, and then Troy Terry would be up there with Scheifele. So 3 of their top 4 players would be American. So there you go.
Yeah. At least 3 of their top 5, because you can, look, I'm not a huge fan, but you can talk me into the Josh Morrissey thing, and I'm actually a very big fan of Mark Scheifele, so.
Yeah. Yeah, a guy that was apparently going to be out the door there. And now he's
what a weird God. You know what?
Because all of a sudden the Jets are good, right? Like if they were bad, he'd be out the door for sure.
Oh my God, dude! It's such a weird thing going on up there, and like the whole Rick Bowness is a good coach thing is weird.
Yep.
Oh, that's right. Adam Lowry is their captain right now. That's so fucking weird. What a weird team.
Yeah.
What a weird team.
That's like Boone Jenner being captain in Columbus, but if Columbus had actual talent around him.
Jeez Louise. Dude, he makes less than $4 million. I don't know why. Boone Jenner. I just assumed he made more money than that.
Yeah, well, because he plays like he should make more money than that.
Well, I don't know about that.
I do love that guy, though. He plays, he does it all. He had 9 shots, 5 hits, and like 17 face-off wins and a goal tonight for the Blue Jackets. He did everything.
Yeah, $3.75 million.
I don't know, man. It's that season though. Trade deadline season is where it gets exciting. We make up all these mock trades and we send them to each other all day, and then none of them happen. We'll end up moving Henrique and Vetrano for first round picks separately, and that'll be it.
Would you rather have let's say somebody says, we'll give you a first for one of the 2 of them, but it has to be a 2025 first. Would you rather take a 2025 first or look for another 2024 first?
I'd look for another 2024 first.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm. For 2 reasons. One, personally right now, I don't really know I haven't looked into the 2025 draft. I don't know too much beyond some of the top players available in that draft. The other reason is just timeline-wise, having an extra year of development for a player to hopefully get into the roster sooner rather than later. I know it's not a foregone conclusion because the guys in 2025 certainly could make the roster before the guys in 2024, but I just like that year sooner and having those guys potentially be able to make the roster.
Counterpoint. Having a guy who hits the roster a year later gives you another ELC year a little later into the window.
Yep.
And again, just a counterpoint.
No, I think it depends on the team too, because you look at that team and you say, they might not be that good in 2025. Like, if you look at the Jets as an example, like, are they going to be good next year? Are they going to be good in 2025? Who knows? They should be. They have the same roster there, but we didn't expect them to be good with this roster this year. Philadelphia is another example. Teams like that, right?
So annoyed.
Teams like that, I think you look at and say maybe you would consider a 2025 first from them because this might just be a one-off season from them.
Right. Yeah, no, I'm an idiot. The correct answer is Troy Terry to the Buffalo Sabres for Zach Benson.
I don't hate it.
Bro, that would rock.
I don't hate it. Remember the days of Buffalo fans hoping that you get Patrick Kane?
Why would you want that, man? Have some self-respect, guys. Ooh, Jordan Greenway. 1 more year at $3 million. I hope they give him a big extension. I like him.
The Sabres should be making moves. I think I see Sam Reinhart going back to the Sabres potentially in the offseason.
Yeah, I will say, of all the teams that could be, like, again, this is just what I'm talking about right now, so it's whatever. Of all the teams who should be calling about Troy Terry at the 2024 draft, Buffalo.
Yeah, they lose.
Especially if they fall backwards in the draft after the lottery, if they get jumped by a team.
Mm-hmm. They got a lot of salary space already, and they've got a lot of dead cap opening up. Olofsson, they won't re-sign at 4.75. Zemgus Girgensson comes off. Kyle Poso comes off. Eric Johnson comes off. That's a lot of money coming off the books that they likely won't bring back. I know that Dahlin's extension kicks in next year, and I
You want to
don't.
talk about overrated?
And they've got to sign Peyton Krebs, but that's it. Benson has 3 years
Bro,
left on the ELC.
they really gave Rasmus Dahlin $11 million. What fucking morons!
You don't like him? You don't think he's worth
I
that
don't.
much?
I don't think he's worth $11 million fucking dollars.
I think he's at least a $9.5 million defenseman.
Yeah, well, we know what you think about Seth Jones, who also makes $9.5 million. I don't know if I trust you right now.
11 for a defenseman is a lot for sure, but
Rasmus Dahlin. Okay, look, he's got 13 goals, 26 points, second on the team.
You tell me this though. You tell me this. What's worse, giving Rasmus Dahlin the way he is now, 11, or giving Owen Power $8.35 million for what he's doing?
You know what? You know what? You are not wrong. You are not wrong, bro.
That one for me is significantly worse because I haven't seen enough from Owen Power to say he's anywhere near $8.35 million. That
And I thought the fucking Jake Sanderson deal was insane. It still is, by the way.
Owen Power could legitimately be worth that, but that is a hefty gamble that you hope this kid is going to be something, because you've also got Rasmus Dahlin, who you locked up to $11 million. They play on the same side, so I mean, if you're not playing them together, then they're splitting minutes, and you're hoping that both of these guys are going to be worth almost $20 million against the cap. So it's interesting, man. It's an interesting one, that's for sure.
What like $8.35 million for a dude who's going to be 22 next year? He has to be a borderline Norris candidate.
But he won't be, because he won't be putting
years.
up the points. Because Dahlin's going to be power play 1. So you're hoping he is a shutdown monster who can still put up like 40 even strength points.
But that was never what he was. Well, I mean, there was a little bit of Hedman, so I guess there's something there. But what fucking dorks, man? Why are you? Again, I get the whole bridge contracts are bad, and this is why I think that's stupid. I would rather pay Owen Power $6 million for the next 3 years, and then have to pay him 10 in a couple, than have to pay him 8, and then he just turns into a $7 million guy the whole time, or a $6.5 million guy.
Who knows? Like, you don't know what you have in him right now. And again, like I said, like the weirdness of paying Dahlin 11 and knowing that Rasmus Dahlin is going to be your number one option offensively. He's going to be your power play quarterback. You're likely not going to run Dahlin Power on power play 1, so you're going to have Owen Power on power play 2. It's just a wild move to say, we're going to lock them both down for significant money. Not like Dahlin, you weren't going to get a bridge deal, so I understand. But like Power, you can't tell me you couldn't do the 3x6 or something around there just to see what you got in this guy and risk it a little bit. Like, you have the cap space to make that work. Like, it's not impossible to do that, but
bro, Owen Power is going to make more than Tage Thompson and Dylan Cousins next year.
He's second highest paid player on the team. Oh, I guess other than Jeff Skinner. So he's the third highest paid player on their team.
Dude, shout out to Jeff Skinner, just hanging around. Good for you, brother.
He's got $9 million for the next 4 years.
He's second on the team in goals. JJ Peterka's got one more than he does.
Shout out to JJ Peterka. He's had a good year too.
What a fucking dumb organization. Like, I don't hate it. I think they're in a sense where they're kind of like in that Ottawa place where they're like, this has sucked for so long. It's nice to have somebody who's good. But Jesus fucking Christ, man, you don't have to pay these guys this much right away.
Yeah.
You don't have to do it.
It's
fucking insane ass thing to do.
I mean, even to some extent, giving Dylan Cousins 7.1 for 7 years is a little bit
an insane deal. That's an insane deal.
Yeah, it's
it was insane the moment they signed it.
I mean, all of them. Like, I like Tage Thompson, but I can't even Tage getting
what are we doing?
After one really, really good year, like
one good season.
Now
he then followed it up in the first year of this deal. He had a very good season.
Yeah, this year though it's not looking the greatest.
Boy,
I mean, Sabres are interesting, man. I'm waiting for Devin Levi to get some sort of insane extension too. for his...
38 goals, 47 goals, and now he's at 15 in 41. So he's on pace to hit 30 goals again. Which, okay, fair enough. But you guys thought he was a fucking MVP candidate 6 weeks ago. So what are we fucking doing here?
Yeah.
This, bro, I don't understand. I don't understand. Like, it doesn't make any sense, man. It just doesn't make any sense. And then you've got fucking Toronto, who's paying everyone and their mother $1 billion.
6 players on the LTIR.
If I played fucking pro hockey, I would want to play in the Atlantic Division. Everyone seems to get paid in the Atlantic Division.
I love looking at Toronto's LTIR. Jake Muzzin, Matt Murray, John Klingberg, Calle Yarncroc, they've got Joseph Wall and his $766,000 of relief on the LTIR. That's how cash strapped they are. That they've got this guy giving them just over $750,000 of relief on the LTIR because they need it that bad. Just absurd. Hey,
Troy Terry for Mitch Marner. Let's go.
Remember how we made fun of Bobby McMahon for the Leafs? He had a hat trick tonight, man.
Good for him. Get it.
Yeah. So this Leafs team continues to amaze me. The cap gymnastics that they go through to make this absurd lineup work is just amazing.
It kind of rocks, man.
It's something. It's something. Willie Nylander getting his extension. They now have 4 players making over 10, and I would just even go for it and say 4 players making 11 because the fact that Marner makes 10.9 is basically 11 million.
Yeah, and by the way, he only makes that for another year. Once it hits July 1, those contract extension conversations start.
Oh yeah, JT's out the door, you would imagine, and Marner gets extended, and they just run Marner, Matthew, Nylanders. Honestly, John Tavares going out the door will be the best thing for this team in terms of being able to actually do something, man. Like to do something and build some depth on their roster because they're just going to be able to make that $11 million work in other places. It's it's insane. It's ridiculous, and they lose TJ Brody's $5 million next year too. So the Leafs are getting somewhere. They're moving in the right direction. Maybe 2 years away from actually being able to do something with this core talented 3 trio they have of Nylander, Marner, Matthews. They got to wait 3 more years to do something with it. But
what an insane fucking thing, dude! It's like Toronto is just the weirdest place in the world. Tyler Bertuzzi sucks. Max Domi sucks.
Yeah, man, all their additions this year were just.
Let's see
Samsonov hasn't been good. It's I mean they're still in a good position though. Somehow the Leafs are still doing something.
Liljegren's only got 9 points. How is that even possible? Calle Yarncroc's got 19 points.
I mean, listen, it's a 5-man team. It's a 5-man team. It's Nylander, Matthew, Marner, Riley, Tavares. The drop off from that is significant. Like it's Nylander 65 points, Matthews 63, Marner 57, Riley 43, Tavares 40, Domi's 25, Bertuzzi at 21, and then it's just a bunch of meh.
If you were gonna be stupid and spend dumb money, if you're fucking Toronto, how do you not already have Chris Tanev on your roster?
Yeah.
Like, he is immediately just raises the bottom on that team.
You can just rock the Brody-Tanev pairing again.
Oh my god, dude, no shit, eh? God, that would be funny.
That was in Calgary, right? They had that in Calgary? It was those two.
I think so.
Or was it Brody Giordano?
Yes, it was Brody Giordano because Tanev around that same time, I think, was playing with Quinn Hughes in Vancouver.
Yeah. So they already did reunite. Brody.
If Edmonton adds Chris Tanev, they become the favorites in the West. I was talking to rebuilding blog online, and we were talking about the idea of an Ekholm, Bouchard, Nurse, Tanev top four. That's serious. That's a serious team.
Maybe.
I know there's still
I don't know
questions
if it
about the goalie.
closes the gap. Again, I don't really have a ton of faith in the rest of the West team. So I think, like, does Tanev make him better than the Jets, Golden Knights, Avs, Stars, and Canucks? Maybe. Um, are they better than those 6 teams now? Possibly. Like, I'm not gonna sit here and say, yeah, Vancouver's clear of everybody else points wise right now, but are they by far and away the best team in the conference? I wouldn't say they're complete runaway favorites or runaway the best team. It's like, the Canucks winning the fucking President's Trophy this year would be, how stupid would that be?
I would rock.
They are the best team in the league right now, points wise. Which is
Are they?
absurd.
Yeah, they are. I'd rather it be them than Dallas.
I just
Look, I'm never going to turn my back on our boy Robo, but
what do you think
I
those
would.
odds would have been at the beginning of the year?
Oh my god, dude! Had to be
There's got to be some psychopathic Vancouver
25,
Canucks fan out
30 to
there
1.
that put odds on not only the Canucks to win the President's Trophy, but the Canucks to win the Cup, and he's loving life right now.
Now, how funny would it be if whoever that person is only did it as a parlay and they win the President's Trophy but lose the President's Gear?
Refuses to cash out.
No, I'm saying, what if you go a parlay and you, like, instead of making all that money on the most random President's Cup trophy winner, you lose it because you got greedy?
Yeah, man. He'd have an opportunity to cash out, but he would refuse to cash out. He'd get to, like, Game 7 against whoever. Let's say we'll give him a benefit of the doubt. Game 7, round 2. This man's not cashing out. Game goes to overtime. He's holding. He's holding for it. He can cash out $50K, but he's holding. You know.
All right, Eddie. Here's what I need you to do. I need you to pick a number between 1 and 10.
7.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We are the 6th pick in the the EA NHL 2014 fantasy draft. Let's see who we get with our first pick.
I'm gonna see if I can find these President's Trophy odds.
All right, McCarr went first. McDavid went second. Draisaitl went third because this game is stupid. Pasternak, McKinnon. Wait, Matthews is still on the board? Oh, shit. Kucherov, Pedersen, Yossi, Panarin, Matthews, Rantanen, Jack Hughes, Matt Tkachuk. Oh, boy. Oh, boy. Should I take Jack Hughes? I feel like I should take Jack Hughes.
Yeah, man, take him.
Or Elias Peterson.
Okay, these are odds from August.
All right, we're going to go with Jack Hughes.
Vancouver was not even on the board here. President's Trophy odds, courtesy of Caesars Sportsbook from August 1st, 2023. Hurricanes had the best odds. Devils, Avs, Oilers, Leafs, Bruins, Golden Knights, Stars, Lightning, Rangers, Kings, Panthers, Wild, Kraken, Sabres. I can't find anything on what that's the top 15. So they had worse than plus 3,000 odds, which is insane.
Oh my god.
I gotta find this number. I gotta find this. This is currently, yeah, of course. Now it's down to plus 240. The Canucks have the best odds, obviously. But I really wish I could find something from earlier this year. All the lists only really show the top 15. They just weren't even. They weren't even considered, man. They weren't even considered. That's
wild.
Oh, I think I got it here. Canucks, where are they? No, can't find it. That's wild. I wish I could find it, but it was in Caesars Sportsbook. It would have been better than plus 3,000 odds. I can't. Somebody had to have that. We'll see that come out near the end of the season. Somebody's bet slip of Canucks for President's Trophy winners.
100%.
Plus 5,000 odds or something.
Insane. Absolutely insane. But it's like 4 a.m. for you?
Yeah, man. We were just riffing.
You gotta go to sleep, brother. We gotta get the fuck out of here.
No, it was nice to get back. A little bit more than a month on from from the last pod. But it's nice to get back, talk to you guys, catch up with you guys. We're still alive. We're still here. We're still making it work. We'll do this again. We promise.
Promise.
We promise. We can at least promise you we'll do it again. Again, we are planning and trying to do it more often. Just this year's been a little bit crazy. So the trade deadline for sure is going to force us to be back within less than a month. So that'll be fun. Maybe we can jump on and try and do a bit more of a preview of trade deadline a little bit closer to deadline day. If not, definitely a review right after. Likely
for sure.
Right, yeah. Deadline's on the 8th, so that works out well. I think that's a Friday, I believe. March 8th is a Friday. Yeah, so that allows us to roll into the weekend, 9th or 10th, and record an episode that day. So we'll at the very least you'll be expecting us on the 9th or the 10th back with hopefully with an episode to recap trade deadline day. If not, we'll be back sooner if we somehow get our proposed trade maybe in the next couple weeks here. Rangers Ducks. Capo Caco, Braden Schneider, welcome to the Anaheim Ducks.
Oh baby.
A couple weeks from now we can jump on a little bit sooner, but we will be back in the next couple weeks here. Appreciate you guys being patient. Appreciate you guys listening, joining the show, hearing us talk about whatever the fuck we talked about today. Ducks, your garbage out front of your house.
Yeah, exactly. It's the best, dude. I love that I have to get into the elevator and they're like, "Hey, please don't leave garbage in the hall." What the fuck is wrong with you people?
We need an update for the next show and see how things go. I'm sure nothing will change.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's insane. It's insane. I can't wait to see. The trade deadline is going to be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to see what kind of dumb deals teams make, and if we get any of this. Oh, they didn't make this trade because they wanted an extension in place and all this stuff. So yeah. Hey Eddie, did you see Morgan Riley 5 games? What did you think of that?